It's that time again for more bad episodes. This one's for the Saban era. Every season has those episodes yet you never like. The character does something stupid, the goal makes no sense, you're a generic filler in the middle of really good ones, in some cases not expanding on characters, or you'll be dealing with that annoying guest you want gone. Some seasons come really close to having a perfect record, but I'm still going to list the episodes that didn't do much. As usual, I count Alien Rangers as a part of mmpr Season 3 and Wild Force as a Saban season. Thanks goes to Tommy Clulo for the suggestion. If you have an idea or topic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment below. I might use it in a future video.
A big surprise!
Bringing back Pudgy Pig was a good idea. It shows the world's alive. They don't complete a quest and move on to the next area while Pudgy Pig stands on Route 10 asking for your Pokegear number. Plus, Rita was the type that recycled monsters. The premise was different. Old lady has this funny pig as a pet. Bulk Skull took it. It got them to do stuff in the episode, but then it runs into recycling the original footage. If they had shot new material for Pudgy Pig, which they could have done, it was one of the few Season 1 suits they had access to, I would have no problems. Everyone notices it was the same footage. It was a popular episode. It ran so many times in repeats. I have this one and the Imposter episode ingrained in my head. Next week on mmpr with the talking bird bumpers Fox did in the 90s. I get it. The writers were thrown off guard. They only intended to write 40 episodes and they were extended for 20 more, so they had to scramble. This episode ended up being a buffer while they wrote the leftover Ranger episodes and gave time for the Japanese crew to film all those monster fights in the U2 footage, but it was boring. You can skip this episode and you never knew it existed. Honestly, I would have been more happy if there was no Ranger footage used. Have Pudgy Pig go after Bulk and Skull, save them from him. That's it.
Nadira's dream date.
This is one of those episodes that wasn't really bad for its plot. Nadira falls in love with Lucas, a bit because of a mistake. Rancic worked pretty good as a joke here. Him cleaning the Blue Ranger suit and ordering the Cyclops to not attack him was funny. The thing that made this suck was the type of episode it was. Every character has traits and basic things about them. Lucas likes to go out on dates and race his cars, but that's all he gets for nearly every Focus episode. That's what makes characters two-dimensional. They need to do more things, add personality to them, like find out he's a softie, or he likes things that Trip likes. Keeping him in this one box while getting few episodes with him degrades the character even more. It's the same reason why people hate Hunter. He's this, does this, that's it. No variation, no, oh, we learned something new about him. That's what Lucas and the others like him lack.
The Great Egg Caper.
This one was basically boring. Lightspeed has the best track record. I don't hate any of them, more that there's just filler ones. This one fell into that basket. Jinxter worked better in Go-Go 5. Pierre had a personality. How should I describe him? He's between Goldar and Babu. This got lost in Lightspeed, so when this one came out, it was just your basic PR episode where some guy who was bad, stole his egg, ended up turning good, helped out, which was done much better in Go Volcanic. Jinxter unfortunately was the weakest villain. The guy that turned good, the whole episode's just meh. It wants to be interesting where they show someone stupid enough to steal something from a monster. He tries to use it for ransom. The idea is cool. This should happen more often. People would do this. Gangs would definitely do this. But since they didn't go in that direction, it's easily forgettable.
The Wedding Part 2.
By far the worst Season 2 episode. I understand that filming the mmpr movie was important. The franchise was at its peak. But they also didn't want to stop filming the series. Having the stunt team do an episode can be a good idea, while the actors later on do their voice work. The problem stems from the story. It's like the writers overcorrected. Okay, we don't have our actors, so we gotta come up with something that keeps them in their suits. Why not go all the way? Instead of filming the human side of them in Australia, come up with a story that locks them in the suits where they have to figure out a way to get out. Instead of that dumb mansion. The wedding and bringing back monsters was fine. The Rangers needed something to do, not wander around this weird place. They could have been lost in a forest where Zed used a special power or some sort of tech that froze them in their ranger suits. Send down Goldar, old monsters, while dealing with a crazy environment. Think of like the Pumpkin Wrapper episode. They were in a weird forest. They could have even had this three-parter have Goldar get access to Green Ranger powers. That would have been crazy. Some sort of mutated mixture of his body and the green suit. This is what locked him, with him being able to summon monsters with the Sword of Darkness. You need to use what you have on the US side. The only thing they would have to make was the custom Goldar suit, which could have been afforded since this was a 3-parter. It's weird liking the villain side over the Rangers.
Attack of the 60-foot bulk.
This is a tonal problem, which was a big issue I had throughout MMAR. The problem with this arc was that the world was reverted to younger versions of everyone. There's only 10 episodes left. They have to find the Zeo crystals, but most of the time, the cast doesn't feel like they really care. They go to this water park with Bulk and Skull. Under normal circumstances, this would be fine, but they're kids and don't have their powers. This is not a good time to do this. Rita and Zed take advantage and use Bulk, turning him into a giant monster. Instead of dealing with a more worried episode like Bulk being in control by Rita, they could use him as leverage. They end up using one of the goofy episodes of Cocker Ranger to have Bulk cry and act like a baby. This is where I lost a lot of respect with the Alien Rangers. Out of 50 episodes to use from Cocker Ranger, this one gets picked. It just continued that spiral down with Rita and Zed looking like morons. No offense to the actors, I liked all the kids. The first time travel episode with them was fine, but writing Bulk this childish, it really didn't fit him. This could have been interesting. Imagine Bulk turning into a monster and the only way to rescue him was turning over the power coins or demanding the Alien Rangers to surrender. It's a basic episode idea, but it keeps the stakes high. This is just 2 months of episodes till Zeo started. You'd think they want to keep the fears and tough nature going.
Worst song and dance.
Some people would say Tommy's brother storyline would be Zeo's worst episodes. I even say the season finale is one of the worst season finales, but those are mainly bad because they don't have payoffs. This one fails everywhere. It had the right idea, but it just felt stretched out. It's weird that they made this a comedy episode, but they didn't use one from O-Ranger in conjunction with the story. So the episode has that disconnect all over the place. I think what it was, I wouldn't speak all the time because it would be embarrassing. If they had balanced when to insert the singing lines for maximum funny, it could work. Maybe I'm not explaining this right. Picture Bulk and Skull. You have 3 main jokes for an episode. Bulk slips on a pizza, Skull falls into the mud, and a VHS tape gets broken. You space them out for different moments so they become the punchline. Singing in every scene, I didn't laugh, I got annoyed. When they added the singing to the morph, they didn't film a custom morph for it. It looked dumb. If it had a few really good moments with the singing, like Tommy and Tanya didn't go into the fight to the last moment, get a really good joke with their singing, it might have worked better.
Bicycle built for the blues.
So for the 1000th time, we get our good old detonator plot. On top of that brilliance, the writers copy Speed from 2 years ago, and you wonder why people hate the first half of Turbo. This does not use Justin or anyone in a good way. This is an example of the most simplistic story idea you can come up with. Under another season, I would be okay with this idea as a filler like it's episode 35, but since this is the beginnings of Turbo and Justin got very little background, this copy-paste plot doesn't hold me. The Rangers act fairly dumb in the situation, plus it has plot holes. I think everyone thought of this when they first watched it. What ability does the Rangers have at their disposal that's been used to get them out of situations? Teleportation. I also thought of another way out. Put him in a car testing platform. It lets you spin the wheels. That way he stays in position while they deal with the bomb. The reason why I'm nitpicking is because the episode doesn't keep me invested. This is season 1 material in season 5. They solved the problem by pulling Justin off the bike so he wasn't like glued or fused to the handles. So teleporting should have been no problem. It's the same issue in a lot of other episodes, like the soccer match and the detonator inside the scoreboard. Only 5 minutes left of the game does the Turbo Navigator pick it up. Why is this thing on you at all times? Why doesn't everyone have one? This is Divatox's MO. You'd think they'd be more prepared in this area? Boring story, you see the flaws in the plot, you ask a billion questions.
The Sunflower Search.
A lot of the Lights of Orion story doesn't make much sense, but this is the dumbest one. One of the main things you take from the Lights is that this power is alive. It has to have a thought process. One of its goals is to find someone who is worthy of the power. What does this have to do with hiding in sunflower statues? Take Jungle Fury. RJ made Casey clean the floor. It had a lesson underlying it. The movements Casey did subconsciously improved his reaction and fighting. What did this do? Prevent the lights from falling into wrong hands? You could have not gone to the station for this episode and accomplished the same thing. The pace was lost. They were trying to paint the Light Saga as this huge thing, but it really wasn't. It's the same problem Kari had in season 1 of Digimon. I remember for months, Fox had commercials up the wazoo. Who's the 8th Digidestin? Where's the 8th Digivice? And I'm sitting there and going like, did you forget we saw a Digivice was left on the floor in her room 10 episodes ago? The way the Japanese story played out, it was not a big deal to the viewer. To the characters, yeah, but we're not in the story. The lights in general don't make sense. It was trying to pick who was worthy, but you only really had 2 choices. The Rangers and Magna Defender, and he was doubtful, so the Rangers should have automatically got them. What more do they need to see? They only saved Terra Venture all the time you saw him.
Carlos on call.
I know, I've talked about this episode at least 6 times. I tried looking through all of the in-space episodes, but end up back to this one. I can't be honest if I pick something else. This will always be the worst episode for space. Why is this episode so bad? Basically, it undermines Carlos. If this was Justin at the start of Turbo, I would have been okay with Sylvie because you can believe Justin would do something dumb and get caught morphing. Carlos has been a Ranger for nearly 2 years. Doing a story where Carlos screws up, then gets taken advantage of, it made him look bad. He didn't know how to handle the situation. I'm not saying go evil on her, take the photos by force, but there was a better way to deal with this. Have the Psycho Rangers find out their appearances. That was the biggest thing they needed to do. Weave her into finding out Carlos was a Ranger. That way, yeah, he screwed up. She saw it. He explained, don't tell anyone. She does it, but they find out she knows who he is. Then it becomes a big problem for her while making Carlos look good. I never understood why Sylvie had to act like a brat. She could have been disappointed in keeping the secret. She is a kid after all, but not do blackmail.
Sing song.
Oh yeah, this episode makes me lose brain cells. The major fault that it has is the Deer Zord is acting like a baby. Ignore Shayla and Merrick also acting childish. You're telling me, Deer Zord, you don't want to use your curing ability when the other Zords are trapped under a spell that will get them killed. So your dumb feelings about a stupid song that's not your power source or some kind of weakness, it's just you listening to a radio basically, takes priority of your friends and species being wiped out. This is why I hate the episode so much. It's one thing for the cast to argue, act stupid, ignore their feelings, but it's another when a Zord has no problem letting its friends potentially die. Can you imagine that happening with people? You'd call that out in a second. Taylor is the Deer Zord, Danny and Max are the ones that have to fix her bed. They argue for something stupid. Taylor gets mad. The Rangers get into a monster fight. They need the Zords. Taylor refuses to call her Ego Zord until the guys stop fighting. Everyone is at the brink of death. Are you really gonna like Taylor for doing that? Especially when Danny and Max, even though they argue, still call their Zords. What makes this worse? The original Gal Ranger episode did this story. None of the writers thought of changing this part. All they had to do was make the Deer Zord under a spell so it just walks away. Simple fix. I try to look at each episode, which one fails to have a decent story while using the characters chosen to their best ability. Does it advance them? Simple is fine, but if your friends look dumb or dumb has to be used to move the story, it's not a good episode. Your thoughts on these picks? Also, leave a comment if you find these videos redundant because a lot of times I end up talking about the same episodes in different lists. It's why I don't like doing certain ones. I repeat myself too many times. By all means, say you hate it. I won't do suggestions featuring the same stuff anymore. New episodes every Monday, fan commentaries Tuesdays. Next week, the worst PR characters throughout all seasons, from leads to guests. If you like my content, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Due to fair use abuses from the various companies, I no longer feature footage from the various episodes. Thank you for understanding. See you in the next video.